Good morning. You are listening to KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. This is First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. Although I am not Dominique DiPrima, my name is Zed Sanders. I am your special guest host this morning, filling in for the incomparable Dominique DiPrima. It is Thursday, October 5th. It is 8:05 in the morning. The city of Los Angeles is rising. We are broadcasting live from Leimert Park in the Crenshaw district. We are talking about the chaos that is going on in Washington, D.C., and we are now looking at some of the top news stories coming out of D.C. It has been an interesting week. I want to bring in a special guest to help close out the hour. I have known this gentleman for a number of years. I count him a friend, a mentor, but more importantly, he has started and has always been the voice of African-American intellect in Los Angeles, and I am honored to be joined by the executive director of the Mervyn Dimely African-American Political and Economic Institute, Anthony Sadullah Samad. Good morning, brother. How are you?
Good morning, Brother Ed. I like you in this new role. You're looking good.
You know, I was laughing with Miles this morning. You know, he's got to keep me on pace, and this is a new experience. I generally call in to First Things First every other Friday and join with Dominique, and we'll chop up everything that's going on in the world, and that's been fun. But this is a first. I get a chance to host the show while she's out, and in the last hour we had an intriguing conversation around dyslexia, and in particular how it impacts African American outcomes. What we were raising up is that the sheer number of people that suffer from some form of dyslexia, estimates are somewhere at 15%. I've seen some as high as 20, some as low as 10. The point being that we don't know. Governor Newsom and the legislature moved, and really at the impetus of Governor Newsom, to pass a law that would have the state of California mandate early screening for dyslexia. So you're looking at the years of kindergarten, first and second. All school districts would do screening to test. What that does is it gives us a clearer picture of how many kids are suffering from it. What we know and what we've talked about through the years is how important it is to have reading proficiency by the third grade, and what that really, really means for the African American community. The kids that aren't reading proficiently by the third grade tend to continue on a continuum, and they have trouble all the way through high school and either drop out. And the worst part about this is that if you start to do the assessments of dyslexia in our prison systems, the higher rates of among inmates and those that are incarcerated of dyslexia. What it speaks to is that there is this path that can be avoided, and you are put on this path not by some choice, but by a natural disorder. And as a community, we've got to talk about that. And, as the state starts to implement its mandated screening, we've got to pay focused attention to that, because what we're going to find is we've got a population of students that simply need help in how they learn in order to give them a shot at learning. And we can't not do that. Otherwise, a lot of that group, a lot of those folks can end up down the line in the prison to pipeline process. I spoke about Governor Newsom, and it's been an interesting week from his standpoint. Later on today in San Francisco, the state will mourn the passing of Diane Feinstein, the late senator. They'll do a service at City Hall. We expect the Vice President and Mayor London Breed to speak and offer words of encouragement or condolence. I think, from a perspective, Newsom has made a lot of noise around his appointment. LaFonza Butler as the new senator, the United States senator from the state of California, was an intriguing pick to start with. You and I have known and worked with LaFonza through the years. Just your first quick impressions and of one, the pick, and two, how LaFonza might fare.
Well, Ed, to start on your initial point, it is important that we begin to properly diagnose African American children, because for decades African American children were misdiagnosed, considered ADD, put on Ritalin, misdiagnosed as it, relates to autism, all types of things.
Called discipline problems. Yeah.
That's correct. Willful defiance, disproportionately expelled. And none of it had to do with their classroom behavior. It had more to do with natural behaviors, as you stated. So I'm glad the governor is looking at that. And I heard the earlier segment, and I think that that's important because there is too many teachers and too many administrators out there that want to miscategorize black children. That being said, the appointment of LaFonza Butler, I thought, was a smooth move because Governor Newsom was in between a rock and a hard place. He had made a promise to black women to appoint a black woman, did not do that with the boxer retirement, and it made black women feel some kind of way. And so, in order to honor that promise, he had some choices. When the choices were Karen Bass and Barbara Lee last time around, well, now Karen Bass is the mayor of Los Angeles. She's not interested. Barbara Lee is running for the Feinstein seat. She was interested. But the thing that folk don't want to talk about in the passing of the Honorable Diane Feinstein is ageism is becoming an issue in our community, and not just in our community, statewide. California is looking to have a senior tsunami by 2030, where 8.5 million people will be over the age of 65. Okay, there is a decline that comes with aging. That is what is concerning to the American populace around our current president, Joe Biden. So, to have someone die in the seat at age 90, and then to consider a candidate that, is 75 years old. Now, if the people elect her, the people elect her. But there is a such thing as mandatory retirement age in public service. The churches have it. Several other types of careers have it. And so I think it was a smart move to go younger. LaFonza is a person that can be elected. I mean, she has not only the intellectual horsepower, but she also has the resources at her disposal to raise money, to reconnect with union forces, and she could sit there another 20 years and still not be as old as some of the folk in the race, so I thought it was a savvy move.
How would and for those listening, I want to come back to the governor's promise, and really what bore that promise out. Like why would the governor have made such a promise?
Well, because at the time, Kamala Harris was the U.S. state senator. She got picked to be on the Biden ticket. That left a void in the Senate. She was the only African-American woman in the Senate. And there was this significant call by African-American women who helped Gavin Newsom get elected, helped him avoid a recall, to replace Kamala Harris with a African-American woman. And he went back on that promise.
And through the years we've looked at statewide politics, and certainly what we know about the African American voter turnout is we punch above our weight. And, while maybe 6% of the population is African American, the voting electorate is represented much higher, particularly when you come into the major urban centers of, San Francisco, Oakland, San Diego. There is a greater turnout. And so that upward pressure of voter turnout, I think, speaks to the promise. Just at the time, it seemed very interesting. That's not a promise that I had seen made to constituencies. Maybe informal, the desire to nominate a woman. Obviously Joe Biden had done something similar with the Supreme Court. You've seen in the past other Supreme Court justices where you say, I'm gonna try to nominate a woman to the post. That's probably the most common sort of promise. But in this very particular way, Biden and Newsom really were focusing on African American women and the power that they pack in U.S. politics. I for one appreciated it. It was an interesting thing. It put, to your point, it put him in quite a fix in terms of trying to figure out how to navigate this. We'll pick up a little more on this on the other side of a commercial break. Right now, I am talking with Anthony Samad, the executive director of the Mervyn Dimely African American Political Economic Institute. You're listening to KBLA Talk Radio.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you have both Medi-Cal and Medicare?
If so, the new LA Care plan called Medicare Plus can help you get the most out of your health plan for $0.
LA Care provides personalized service to Angelinos like us.
Plus, it gives us access to doctors and specialists across Los Angeles County.
It's a plus.
It's a plus
for all of us.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist. Ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
What's up? I'm Danelle Riley, FAMU alumni and creator of the HBCU Culture Shop. I am so proud of my new partnership with Black Beyond Measure and Target. They help me elevate community pride with my HBCU designs and continue to support Black creators and entrepreneurs with Target HBCU challenges, scholarship programs, and campus collaborations. Let's come together this homecoming season and beyond. Shop my brand and discover other Black-owned products at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now, you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears, thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are live, KBLA 1580 Talk Radio, broadcasting from Lamert Park in the Crenshaw District. This is First Things First. I am Zed Sanders. I am filling in for Dominique DiPrima today. We are joined by Dr. Anthony Samad, the Executive Director of the Mervyn Dimely African-American Political and Economic Institute. We are talking about the appointment of LaFonsa Butler to the U.S. Senate. We were talking a little bit about the governor's promise to Black women and how unique and special that was, just in terms of politics. And so, more thoughts from you in that regard.
Well, I think historically, both Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden were pinned in the corner. Biden with a failing campaign that underperformed before they got to South Carolina. Newsom with a recall that very easily could have turned another way. In Joe Biden's case, it was quite clear that Black women drove the South Carolina win. And the ask was a Black woman on the Supreme Court, which Biden fulfilled. In this instance, with Governor Newsom, all Black women asked was that Kamala be replaced with another Black woman. He went with Alex Padilla. Now, we can't act like we don't know that Gavin Newsom is positioning himself for something else. So he is clearly posturing to different segments of the electorate. In some instances, as it relates to identity politics, in other instances, it's related to issues politics. But he's clearly walking a tightrope. And so with the possibility of him becoming a candidate in 2028, even though he's running in 2024,
right,
it is quite clear.
Right.
Because the anticipation is something might happen. Joe Biden might fall out. Kamala Harris, might end up president. And certainly she might have to end up running for her own reelection, which a lot of people think she's vulnerable, And so historically, when we punched above our weight, as you put it, which means we overperformed in relation to our own population as it relates to electorate politics. Women have learned how, particularly Black women, have learned how to ask for what they want. Historically, Black males, were oftentimes at the front of the delivery of Black community votes, but women were there too. Black males didn't oftentimes ask for what they wanted. It seemed self-serving, in some sense, but women have taken a different approach. Their quid pro quo is, if we help you, you have to help us.
I think that's right. I would say that politics now, seems to be, and this may be generational, right? When I was young, I think I was more driven by accountability, right? And you wanted to see a return on your investment of intellect and energy. I've aged and I've seen promises made, promises not kept. We've supported candidates, we've opposed candidates that have been elected unable to deliver back for the community, right? I think in your point is this piece that there are a new crop of candidates that are with demanding a higher degree of accountability, and effectuating it, right? Or at least, to the point about punching up, holding certainly the Democratic Party leadership accountable for, not delivering on certain points. One of the things we should talk about is it just the optics? Is just having an African-American senator enough? What else do we need to see? And can what can LaFonsa, alongside Alex Padilla, deliver back for the state of California that would start to satisfy that need?
Well, first, I do concur that it is generational. The 30s, 40s, in some instances 50s generation do believe in some levels of accountability. But in the past, we've seen when we've delivered, promises weren't kept. Right. Probably the most classic case is the 1988 Jesse Jackson campaign, where he won 12 states and still got more votes than any of the other candidates combined, and they still didn't put him on the ticket.
Right.
He refused to ask, but it was obvious that he should have, if they had followed a historical tradition of the second runner-up being placed on the ticket to unite the party. That would have been the obvious choice. There were lessons learned in that, okay? And it took us 20 years to learn that lesson. By the time Barack came around, we understood what we had to do. So when we talk about the optics, I'm glad you brought that up, because the optics are no longer just black and white. It's no longer just bifocal. It's multifocal.
Right.
It's, black, white, Latino, Asian. Everybody has to be represented on some level. That's what the optics look like. Okay. However, in terms of performance, communities have different needs. It's more now than just having representation. There has to be performance, to kick back against this retrogression we're experiencing with racism and basically the growing inequality gaps that, the State of Black Los Angeles County report produced this year, which I'm a co-author. We have to understand that we're losing ground, even though the optics look right. We're losing ground economically. We're losing ground educationally. We're losing life off our years due to the compounded effects of racism. So our morbidity is falling. And we have to address those structural issues. LaFonsa Butler is someone who has done that. I mean, she was responsible for getting home health care workers into a movement that, got $15 an hour. Now they're upwards to $20 an hour and working for more than that. So she understands how to get things done. She understands how to negotiate. She knows how to be diplomatic when she needs to be. She knows how to put her foot on the pedal when she needs to be. That's a good look for us. It's a generational shift. Still waiting for Alex Padilla to show us that, he can deliver something. We understand, he's a freshman senator and all that. But there's still something to be said for going in and letting your voice be heard and not putting self-interest first for committee appointments and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's, look, we have what will now be two fairly young U.S. senators.
Right.
And the question of seniority for the state and the ability to deliver will always be high. Your point about Alex really being a freshman senator is taken. It does take a number of years, which is one of the other elements of the age conversation, to become, the ranking member on, whatever committee you're on. One of the elements, even for Diane Feinstein, that was so critical was, she was the ranking member on judiciary over the last couple of years, and you achieve that through years of service.
Right.
And that's where you really start to make your mark. Obviously with all of the resources within the federal government, your United States Senator plays a pivotal role in just delivering back from federal departments. And, I think to your earlier point, the two that we have now, from a generational standpoint, from an intellect standpoint, do provide a lot of opportunity. I am curious to see how they work. And part of what I've got to do is hold back and, wait to see what unfolds with LaFonsa, right? Mm-hmm. Is this a 1 year term and then she's back to private industry, or is she going to declare in a couple weeks that she's going to run for office? I think that will be the biggest question facing the state. We'll pick that up as we come back from commercial break. This is Zed Sanders. You're listening to KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. First things first.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is calling for a construction of a border wall in parts of Texas. Fox News says Mayorkas is citing an acute and immediate need to waive dozens of federal laws to build a border wall in parts of Texas where illegal migration has been surging. The man accused of murdering rapper Tupac Shakur will now be arraigned later this month in Las Vegas, Nevada. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, who is black, was expected to be arraigned Wednesday, but the arraignment has been moved to October 19th. Authorities say Shakur was involved in a fight with Davis outside a Mike Tyson fight back in 1996, which eventually led Davis to allegedly get the gun that was used to kill Shakur. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Lowe's knows fall is the perfect time for outdoor projects. Right now, you can keep your yard looking its best and save. Take care of leaves with leaf blowers starting at just $89.98. Lowe's knows home improvement. While supplies last, see store for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers will play Arizona in the National League Divisional Playoffs. Arizona swept Milwaukee yesterday in the best-of-3 wildcard round. The Dodgers and Arizona kick off their best-of-5 series on Saturday at Dodger Stadium. The Rams saw something at Wednesday's practice they hadn't seen in a while. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp caught some passes from quarterback Matthew Stafford. It was Kupp's first full practice since he went down with a hamstring injury in August. Barring any complications, Kupp could be in the lineup for Sunday's home game against Philadelphia. LeBron James said Anthony Davis is now the face of the Lakers franchise. Lakers fans would rather see Davis stay healthy. Davis has missed 114 games over the past 3 seasons. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At City National, we listen to you.
I want to expand my business and my legacy.
I want to set up the next generation for success.
I want to see my vision come to life.
I want to feel right at home.
Your goals, passions, vision, future. We want to hear it and work alongside you to achieve it. Visit cmb.com to learn more. City National Bank. Here for our clients and communities.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it. Together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, children are the future. Here, tobacco companies are committed to higher education, offering scholarships to students who submit essays about the benefits of vaping. The tobacco industry even sponsors summer camps for kids. Don't worry, the tobacco-sponsored programs have been linked to leaving your kids more interested in smoking. In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, the world's deadliest industry is your child's friend.
See reality at undo.org.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. 120,000 miles of night drives, daily commutes, and who knows how many.
Are we there yet?
Through countless fixes, elbow grease, and a new radiator, you kept your ride alive. With eBay Motors, you have over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
To some, this might sound like a typical family dog. But at Dog Chow, we know that for a veteran suffering from PTSD, this could be the sound of life-saving therapy.
Thanks, Betty.
That's why we've made it our mission to connect every military hero in need with a canine hero of their own. To learn about the simple ways you can help Dog Chow in our mission, visit dogchow.com/veterans.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
I was going to try to hit that note. This is Zed Sanders. We are on KBLA, broadcasting live from Mert Park. This is First Things First. I am your guest host this morning, and we have been talking about the appointment of LaFonsa Butler. I am speaking this morning with Dr. Anthony Samad. One last point on LaFonsa. Is she going to run? Is she going to run for re-election? She's got an appointment through the end of next year. There's currently, 3 major candidates. Two have succeeded or run for the U.S. Senate seat. Is she going to sit as a caretaker, or is she going to run?
Well, she's too powerful of a person to sit as a caretaker. I think that there was a lot of calculation in this move. Someone who is not in the current field, who has the capacity to compete and win. Look at what she has to give up to take the appointment, which is the presidency of Emily's List, which is a very prestigious job. She's a queen maker, okay? And if I was a betting man, I would hedge my bets that she is going to run and at least, make a dash at keeping the seat permanent, because she would be an ideal pick from a longevity perspective as well as from an institutional memory perspective.
I think I agree with you there. It only makes sense to do something like that for her. If she intended to run, it will be really the political question going into next year. There's about another 2 months before she has to decide to pull papers. Then you'll know the answer. But if she does run, what that race looks like will be the high drama for politicos like us. One of the other stories this week has been the ousting of the House Speaker in Kevin McCarthy, and what that may entail for this country over the next few weeks. The funding of the U.S. government has been kicked down the can has been kicked down the road for 45 days. The deal that McCarthy made with Democrats to pass that resolution has now ultimately cost him his speakership. Republicans need to come together and figure out who's going to be speaker. It's chaos in D.C. It's chaos in the House. What's your take on that?
Well, as we talked a little bit about on the break, Kevin McCarthy made a deal with the devil when he agreed to a resolution that one member of the House could call for the removal of the chair. And you probably knew who that devil was going to be from the outset. Mm-hmm. That's how bad he wanted the speakership. But clearly, they have so many factions in the Republican Party right now, is you don't see a faction that can lead. All you see is, whoever goes into the speaker's seat is going to be put under that same gun,
right?
Of conditions that are nearly impossible to meet. And if you don't meet them, then we can oust you too. And so it's an interesting play, for the Democrats in the House, and particularly Hakeem Jeffries as minority leader, to watch this Republican Civil War, as he calls it, because at the end of the day, we're going into an election year, and it's really going to cause some damage for the Republican Party, particularly if people's money run out, government stops. Do
you think it will hurt them? I ask that because the threat that holds take a Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, those MAGA Republicans that base in the House. The threat that holds their power is that they're going to primary, moderate Republicans. I don't know that there are moderates, but not the MAGA Republicans. The threat of primary is really what gets them compelled to act. They seem strong enough that primary candidates across the board can impact elections, that they really don't or won't have ramifications. The ramifications may be on the presidential side. It may be in gubernatorial races. It may be in Senate races, but I don't know that that's the case. What I do know is that I think that base stands a chance of keeping the number of House seats that it won.
Well, I'll say this. The 8 that defected, they were all in safe seats. They had won their re-elections by double-digit numbers. However, in 2022, they expected a red wave that never materialized. And between 2020 and 2022, the House now is more dysfunctional than it was then. So I think they're going to pay a price, and they're going to pay a price with the members that are in close races who didn't vocalize the dysfunction that was occurring with the Gaetz-McCarthy battle. I think that you're also going to see some damage being done at the presidential level and their inability, to find a replacement for the nominee other than the front runner now, who I don't like to say his name. But the bottom line is the outcome of his trials is going to dictate who the party nominee is. And with the exception of Nikki Haley, I think she's a strong candidate. The rest of them are ideologues. And Biden will be in a race if he's in a race against Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
But if it's Biden against, Orange Man, I think it's going to end up same old, and we're going to have this ageism fatigue that allows none of us to be really excited about national politics.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. This in some ways it's been the same old story for the last few years. I think you and I would agree that the emergence of a Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz is has always been troubling, but I think we can always go back through history and find the Yahoo that is that really shouldn't be invited to a political conversation, right, but somehow kicks the door in. And the worst part about it is what they mean for us. I mean, more often than not, they have been so openly hostile to the African-American community and our interests that it now becomes sort of this life or death conversation for us politically, right? These elections mean more to us as a community, and we've got to pay greater attention to the detail. When we look at a Hakeem Jeffries, the presence of him, Vice President Harris, now LaFonsa Butler, when you see African Americans in key leadership posts, is there anything that outside of the optics that gives you hope going into the next couple months and years?
There is. First and foremost, the parties that you just mentioned, they are able to serve their generation in real time. As you know, here in Los Angeles, many African Americans who were in office, didn't even get to serve their first office until they were in their 50s.
Right.
Which is why they're sitting so long. So we see a generational turnover that allows fresh eyes to be put on a shifting political paradigm, particularly as it relates to Kamala Harris, particularly as it relates to LaFonza Butler. If you ain't got a woman on your team, you better get one.
You better get one.
Because women are running the world.
If you're talking politics, if you're talking business, the corporate world, or you're just talking happiness at home, you better get one.
You better get one.
Look, Dr. Samad, thank you for coming in today. I am holding in my hand the 2022-2023 official report, the State of Black Los Angeles County. You and the Merv Dimely Institute did a lot of work to put this together. Certainly at some point we've got to find a way to talk a little bit more about what's in here. How can folks find this and get a copy?
Well, it's online, State of Black Los Angeles. We did it in conjunction with Los Angeles County, and we would love to have a prolonged conversation about this, because this is not a one and done. The county intends to do annual reports on the State of Black Los Angeles County until there's a time which we can make up some of these inequalities.
Excellent. Brother, appreciate your time this morning.
Always good to see you, brother.
Always great to see you. This is KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. First things first.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and, they're putting their money where their mouth is at, So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community. And, you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase and, give them, another look if I go to another institution. I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right. Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
I walk for my mom, who survived a heart attack.
I walk to inspire my kids.
I walk to save lives. So can you. Join the American Heart Association's Greater Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, October 22nd. Register at heartwalkla.org.
Hey, son. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, the loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. 120,000 miles of night drives, daily commutes, and who knows how many.
Are we there yet?
Through countless fixes, elbow grease, and a new radiator, you kept your ride alive. With eBay Motors, you have over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
Good morning. This is Zed Sanders. This is KBLA 1580. This is First Things First, and I am sitting in the chair this morning for Dominique DiPrima, and we are broadcasting live from Leimert Park. As we begin to wrap the third hour, it is October 5th, not 8:50 in the morning. Want to make sure that everyone has a quick read on the top news stories. Today, former President Donald Trump's fraud trial is continuing in New York. We're keeping an eye on that as the former president is accused of overvaluing his real estate properties to get better loan terms. We've been talking about House Republicans and the disarray in D.C. after the ousting of Kevin McCarthy, and then certainly acknowledging the life of Senator Diane Feinstein, who will be honored at a memorial service later on today in San Francisco. We were having an incredible conversation on the state of politics, particularly as it reports to Governor Newsom's appointment of LaFonsa Butler in the U.S. Senate with Dr. Anthony Samad. Fascinating takes on his point. I want to sort of bring this back home because politics always matters. We spend time talking about it, but we also have to find ways to actualize it. One of the points that we made with Dr. Samad is there are a lot of promises that get made to us as an African-American community. And one of the distinctions we were wondering about and talking about is, are the optics of an appointment, are the optics of, the vice president on the ticket, the optics of the new minority leader in Hakeem Jeffries, are those just optics, or can the party deliver for our community? I would advocate and say that, it takes us in those positions of leadership to steer the party in a way that delivers for our community. For the last few moments here, I'm joined by Dallas Fowler, who I have known for a number of years. Dallas works on behalf of the California Coalition for Worker Power. One of the news stories of the day is the strike of Kaiser workers, healthcare workers that are now out and looking for better pay and better time on the job. What it calls into question is the working conditions of Californians and Americans, and what are we really dealing with now, sort of post-COVID, in an economy that is putting more pressure on the workforce labor to produce. Dallas, welcome to the show. You've been doing a lot of work around SB 497, and this is the bill written by Senator out of California. And I want to find a way to talk about that. Lola Smallwood Cuevas, who's been just a staunch advocate for the Black worker, first through her leadership of the Black Worker Center and now as a California state senator. Tell me a little bit about SB 497 and the role that your coalition has played.
Yeah, well, the CCWP, which is the California Coalition for Worker Power, and greetings, thank you so much, Ed, for having me on this morning. The Coalition for Worker Power is a co-sponsor of SB 497, and is a coalition of worker centers and labor unions and worker advocates for low-wage workers. And that is something that Lola has been doing. And so we have had a great partnership with her on this bill. And this bill essentially is addressing the issue that California workers are suffering in silence, and more in particular, Black workers are suffering in silence. One of our coalition partners, the National Employment Law Project, did a study of 1,000 workers last year in California and determined that 38% of California workers, that's close to 7 million workers in our state, are suffering in silence. They are experiencing workplace violations, be it wage theft, issues of pay inequity, workplace safety hazards. And when they raise these issues, they face retaliation. And so what this bill does essentially is allows when a worker engages in that in protected employee conduct, and that would be, hey, what an issue of pay equity. Hey, we have an issue of wage theft here. If they receive some type of adverse action from that employer within 90 days, it allows our labor commissioner to readily identify it as an act of retaliation and issue fines to that employer. The employer then also has the opportunity to come back and say, hey, no, that's not exactly what happened here. This worker was a no-call, no-show 5 days in a row, or we lost our contract. We had to actually let go half of our staff. There's legitimate reasons for firing folks, right? And we know that this is an at-will employment state, but we know at-will is rooted in the history of Reconstruction and keeping folks oppressed and in slave-like conditions. And so this bill really seeks to address that issue, and we are just so proud of Senator Lola Smollett-Cuevas. This bill has passed both the Assembly and the Senate, and it is now on Governor Gavin Newsom's desk, and we are looking forward to him signing this bill.
You raised, some key points that, I always feel that people may not realize how prevalent it is. You spoke to wage theft and what has been your sense of the scope of the wage theft within California?
And I'll speak to it with Black workers in particularly. I mean, and just in general overall, we're talking about probably roughly $2 billion in wages that have not been adequately dispersed.
And how does that typically happen? Is it how does an employer do it?
So it's we have issues where employers are dipping into the tips pool of their employees and sharing the tips. The tips are supposed to be directly to the worker, or hours are being cut, or they're working overtime and
not being recorded as
not
work.
Being paid for those overtime hours. They're not exempt employees. They are supposed to be paid hourly. And many times that isn't happening, or the employer asks, well, can you stay later? Can you come in a little early? And then that is not seen on those workers' hours. It's not reflected on their timesheets and in their paychecks. And so that's often how it happens.
Yeah, and so, I think one of the reasons we wanted to raise the bill up is, we are hopeful and expecting that the governor would sign it, but ultimately this is something for our community that we need to know about, because a lot of what you lay out it really is a question of leverage. And, to your earlier comments, a workforce that is subjected to these types of practices is generally a workforce that can't speak for itself. And the system as currently designed favors the employer. I think SB 497, to your earlier point, starts to level the field in terms of leverage, which brings the employer back to the conversation, having to answer to the charge, as opposed to the charge just being dismissed. What can people do to plug in?
Well, I was just going to say, because what's happening right now is it's illegal. Retaliation is illegal in our state. But in terms of workers accessing the justice to that, employers are just perversely remaining silent and then the onus is on the employee, the worker, to try to prove what was in the mind of the employer.
Understood. Let me ask this. How can people plug in with the California Coalition of Worker Power? Do you need people to weigh in with the governor's office and urge him to sign this bill?
We are asking everybody to call the governor's office, ask him to sign this bill. You can send a letter to the governor's office. Our information is californiaworkerpower.org, and you can find more information on this bill, or you can also just go directly to the governor's office, californiagovernorca.gov, and see and call his office and let him know we want SB 497 to be signed. So,
Dallas, thank you. I can't thank you enough. Wanted to raise this issue up. It's Thursday morning, KBLA 1580. You've been listening to Dominique DiPrima and First Things First. My name is Zed Sanders. Happy to be your guest host today. Thank you for joining.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Nation has been searching. The man accused of murdering rapper Tupac Shakur will now be arraigned later this month.